You ever just stop and look at the people who clean up the world around you? I mean, really look at them, because if you did, you might realize that the guy emptying your trash bin or the woman buffing the marble floors of your office lobby has a story that could bring you to your knees. And I'm telling you this because I witnessed something down in Chicago that changed the way I look at every single person I meet. A story about a man named Elias Thorne who was invisible to everyone except the one person who mattered, and it all started on a Tuesday, the kind of gray, biting Tuesday that makes you question why you live in the Midwest, inside the gleaming glass tower of Sterling Heights architecture, where Elias pushed a heavy gray cart with a squeaky wheel that sounded like a dying mouse, a sound that drove the executives on the 40th floor absolutely crazy, but they never said anything to him directly because to them, Elias wasn't a person. He was just a piece of moving furniture that smelled faintly of lemon polish and old grief. But there was one guy, Brock Harrison, you know the type, the VP of sales with the teeth that are too white and a suit that costs more than Elias's car, who didn't just ignore Elias, he treated him like a prop for his own amusement. And on this particular Tuesday, Brock and his wolf pack of junior executives were bored, dangerously bored, hanging around the reception desk when Elias rolled by. And Brock gets this glint in his eye, the kind of look a cat gets before it swipes at a moth. And he steps right in front of the cart, stopping Elias dead in his tracks. "Elias, my man," Brock says, his voice dripping with that fake corporate camaraderie that makes your skin crawl. "We were just talking about you. See, we think you're working too hard. You're looking a little ragged, buddy, and word on the street is you're a lonely guy. And we can't have that." And Elias just grips the handle of his cart tighter, his knuckles turning white, looking at the floor, because he knows nothing good comes from making eye contact with a shark like Brock. But Brock leans in, smelling of expensive cologne and arrogance, and drops the bomb, telling Elias that there's a woman in the design department, a high-up executive named Victoria Sterling, the ice queen herself, who's been asking about him, saying she thinks he has soulful eyes and wants to buy him dinner at the Onyx Room that night now. The Onyx Room is the kind of place where they don't put prices on the menu, because if you have to ask, you're in the wrong zip code. And Elias, poor Elias, who hasn't been on a date in for years since his wife Sarah passed, he tries to say no. He tries to back away, muttering about having to pick up his little girl, but Brock is relentless, pressing a reservation card into his chest pocket, telling him it's already paid for, telling him not to be rude, not to break a lady's heart, until a tiny, dangerous spark of hope flickers in Elias's chest, a hope he thought he buried, along with Sarah, and he thinks, maybe, just maybe, the world isn't as cold as it's been feeling lately. So fast forward to 8 p.m., and Elias is standing outside the Onyx Room, shivering not just from the wind but from sheer terror, wearing a suit that's 2 sizes too big because he's lost weight from the stress of single fatherhood, a suit that smells like cedar closets and memories, and he walks in. The Master D looks at him like he's a stain on the carpet, but Elias mentions the reservation, and sure enough, he's led to a table in the center of the room, and there she is, Victoria Sterling, the CEO of the company, a woman who could silence a boardroom with a single raised eyebrow, looking stunning and terrifying in a black dress, tapping furiously on her phone. And she doesn't even look up when he sits down, just assumes he's the waiter or something, until Elias clears his throat, his voice cracking like a teenager's, and says, "Mrs. Sterling, I'm Elias from the 40th floor." Victoria looks up, her eyes like blue steel, confused, then annoyed, and she asks him if he's delivering a package, and Elias, feeling the heat rise up his neck, stammers, "No, Brock, Mr. Harrison. He said you wanted to have dinner, that you asked for me." And the moment those words leave his mouth, he sees the change in her face, not attraction, not warmth, but a flash of pure, cold fury followed by a pity that cuts deeper than any insult. And she looks over his shoulder towards the bar, and Elias turns, and there they are, Brock and his cronies, holding up their phones, recording, trying to stifle their laughter behind their hands, shaking with the hilarity of it all. The janitor and the CEO, the prince and the pauper, and in that second, Elias's heart doesn't just break, it disintegrates. He feels the weight of every floor he's mopped, every toilet he's scrubbed, realizing he's just a punchline in a rich man's joke, and he stands up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, mumbling an apology, desperate to just vanish, to melt into the floorboards. But Victoria, and this is where the story pivots. This is where the universe decided to intervene. She sees the recording phones. She sees the devastation in this man's eyes, and something in her snaps. She slams her hand down on the table, not loud, but with enough force to make the silverware jump, and says, "Sit down, Elias," a command, not a request. "You are not going to give those pathetic children the satisfaction of seeing you run." And Elias freezes, caught between flight and obedience. But then he sees something else sitting next to Victoria. Almost invisible in the high-back booth is a little boy, maybe 6 years old, wearing a tiny suit and holding a tablet. But he's not playing a game. He's just staring blankly at the screen, his eyes hollow, empty. The kind of look no child should ever have, and Elias knows that look. He knows it intimately, because he sees it in the mirror every morning. He slowly sits back down. Victoria watches, about to tell him to stop, to not bother, that professionals have tried and failed. But then she sees Leo's eyes shift, just a fraction, moving from the dead screen of his tablet to the dragon on the paper, and Elias doesn't. Look at the boy. He just whispers to the drawing, "It's okay, little guy, the walls are high, but they keep you safe, don't they?" And he draws a small door in the wall of thorns, but he draws it closed, locked tight. And then he slides the pencil across the table, just leaving it there, and goes back to sipping his water, giving the boy space, giving him control, which is the one thing trauma steals from a child. Minutes tick by, agonizingly slow, the sounds of the restaurant clinking and buzzing around them. And Victoria is about to call the check, thinking it's another failure, when a small hand reaches out, hesitant, trembling, and Leo picks up the pencil, and Elias holds his breath. Victoria holds her breath, and the boy doesn't draw a sword or a fire. He draws a key, a tiny, jagged key lying on the ground outside the door, and he pushes the paper back to Elias. And Elias looks at it, nods solemnly, and draws the door just slightly ajar, just a crack, letting a little bit of light in, and he looks up to see Leo watching him, eyes wide, alive for the first time in forever, and a ghost of a smile touches the boy's lips. Victoria stares at the paper, then at Elias, her mouth slightly open, her corporate mask completely shattered, and she whispers, "Who are you?" And Elias just smiles, a sad, weary smile, and says, "I'm just the guy who cleans your floors, Mrs. Sterling. But I know what it's like to be locked inside a room you can't find the way out of, and the rest of the dinner is a blur. The food comes and goes untouched, because for the next hour, the janitor and the silent boy pass drawings back and forth, creating a story of escape, of safety, while the CEO watches with tears silently tracking down her face, realizing that the miracle she'd been praying for was wearing a thrift store suit and pushing a mop bucket in her own building. When they leave the restaurant, Brock is long gone, having slunk away when the joke didn't land, and on the sidewalk, under the glow of the street lamps, Victoria turns to Elias, grabbing his arm with an intensity that startles him, and says, "You have to help him. I don't know what you did, but that's the most he's communicated in a year. I'll pay you whatever you want. I'll double your salary. I'll set you up in a private practice." But Elias pulls back, shaking his head, the shame of his past failure with Sarah rising up, telling her, "I can't. I'm not that man anymore. I couldn't save my wife. I can't take your money." But Victoria isn't asking as a CEO now. She's begging as a mother, pleading, "Please, not for me, for him. Look at him." And Elias looks down to see Leo clutching the napkin, with the dragon drawing like it's a lifeline. And he knows he's trapped. He knows he can't walk away from a child in pain. "No money," Elias says firmly, setting the terms, "and nobody knows, especially not the people at the office. I do this because I want to. And if I feel like I'm not helping, we stop, deal?" And Victoria nods, deal, and for the next 3 months, a secret ritual begins twice a week. After his shift ends and the lights in the tower dim, Elias takes the service elevator up to the penthouse, not to clean, but to sit on the floor of $1 million living room with a 6-year-old boy using clay and charcoal and silence to rebuild a broken world, and slowly, agonizingly, the walls begin to come down, not just for Leo, but for Victoria too, who starts joining them on the floor, trading her power suits for yoga pants, ordering pizza instead of catered meals, learning that the man she thought was invisible sees more than anyone else she's ever met. They talk, late at night after Leo falls asleep, standing on her balcony overlooking the city, Elias talking about his daughter, about the struggle of keeping the lights on, Victoria talking about the loneliness of the top, the pressure to be perfect, the fear that she's failing her son, and there's a connection growing there, something tender and terrifying, a realization that they are two shipwrecked souls who found the same raft. But of course, in a world like this, secrets don't stay secret forever, and happiness makes a noise that jealous people can hear from a mile away. Brock Harrison had been watching, seething, noticing that Elias wasn't getting fired, noticing that Victoria was leaving early, smiling more, looking softer, and he started digging. He started tracking security logs, seeing the service elevator trips to the penthouse, and his twisted mind couldn't comprehend kindness. It could only imagine scandal, thinking Elias was manipulating her, or worse, that they were having some sordid affair that threatened the company's image and, by extension, his own ambition to take her job. So Brock decided it was time to end the joke for good, not with a prank this time, but with a bullet to the head of Elias's reputation. It was a Friday, the day before the company's massive annual stakeholder gala, when security guards swarmed the lobby, surrounding Elias while he was polishing the brass railings, barking at him to put his hands up, and Elias, terrified, confused, sees Brock standing by the elevators with a smirk that could cut glass, holding a folder, and the head of security pulls a hard drive out of Elias's cleaning cart, a hard drive taped under the bucket, labeled confidential bid data, Project Skyline, and Brock steps forward, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "I knew it. Corporate espionage, stealing our bids to sell to competitors? That's a federal crime, Janitor." And Elias is stammering, "I've never seen that. I don't even know what that is." But the evidence is planted, the trap is sprung. And as they handcuff Elias, marching him out past the gawking employees, he looks back and sees the elevator doors open, and Victoria steps out, seeing him in cuffs. And for a second, just a split second, he sees doubt in her eyes, because who wouldn't doubt? He's a janitor. He's desperate for money. It fits the narrative, and that doubt, that hesitation, hurts Elias more than the cold steel of the handcuffs biting into his wrists. They drag him to a holding room in the basement, waiting for the police, and Elias sits there in the dark, thinking about his daughter waiting at daycare, thinking about Leo waiting for their session, thinking that he was a fool to believe he could step out of the shadows without getting burned. But he doesn't know that upstairs, in the C-suite, a war is about to start. Because Victoria Sterling might have hesitated, but she is a woman who deals in facts, not feelings, and she knows one fact above all else. A man who can draw a key to unlock a silent boy's heart doesn't steal hard drives for a quick buck. So there's Elias, sitting in that windowless security room, the hum of the ventilation system sounding like a countdown clock to the end of his life, his head in his hands, picturing his daughter being taken by social services when he doesn't show up, picturing the disappointment on Leo's face, and he's spiraling, he's absolutely crashing, until the door flies open, not opening, flies open, and Victoria Sterling walks in. And she's not wearing her mom face. She's not the vulnerable woman on the balcony. She's the CEO of a billion-dollar empire, and she looks like she's ready to burn the building down to the foundation. She ignores the head of security, ignores Brock, who is trailing behind her like a smug hyena, and she walks straight up to Elias, grabs his face in her hands, ignoring the handcuffs, ignoring. The Gry man asks him one question, looking him dead in the eye. "Did you do this?" And Elias looks back, tears streaking through the dust on his cheeks, and whispers, "Victoria, I don't even know how to use the computer system. I just wanted to help your son, and that's it. That's all she needed, because she releases him, spins around on her heel, and faces Brock. And the temperature in the room drops about 20 degrees. Uncuff him, she commands, her voice low and dangerous, and the security guard stammers. But Ms. Sterling, the evidence, the hard drive was in his cart, and Victoria laughs, a sharp, humorless sound. Oh, the hard drive? You mean the hard drive that requires a level 5 security clearance to even access? The clearance that only 3 people in this building have. Me, the CFO, and you, Brock. And Brock's smirk falters, just a twitch, but he doubles down, puffing out his chest. Don't be naive, Victoria. He probably stole a password. Or he's working with someone. Look at him. He's a nobody. He's desperate. And Victoria steps into Brock's space, forcing him to take a step back. You're right. He is desperate, desperate to heal a child that the rest of the world forgot. While you're desperate to take my chair. She pulls out her tablet and projects the security footage onto the wall monitor. Not the footage of the lobby, but the footage from the 40th floor hallway at 6 a.m. that morning. Footage that Brock thought was deleted because he bribed the night guard, but he forgot that the CEO has a mirrored server that backs up everything in there. In grainy black and white is Brock Harrison, looking left and right, slipping the silver hard drive under the mop bucket in the supply closet, clearly planting the evidence. Before Elias even clocked in, the silence in the room is absolute, heavy, suffocating, until Victoria breaks it. This is not just termination, Brock. This is criminal framing. This is fraud. And she turns to the security guard. Take the cuffs off Mr. Thorne and put them on Mr. Harrison. Now. And as the guards switch targets, Brock starts screaming, losing his mind, yelling that she's crazy, that she's sleeping with the janitor, that the board will hear about this, that she's ruining the company's reputation over a trash man. But Elias just stands up, rubbing his wrists, looking at Brock not with anger, but with pity, simply saying, I'm not a trash man, Brock. I'm a father. Something you clearly don't understand. And as they drag Brock out, kicking and screaming, Victoria, she turns to Elias, this man, who you walk past every day without seeing, who cleans your trash and mops your spills. He didn't see a diagnosis. He saw a little boy. He used a piece of paper and a piece of charcoal and more patience than I have ever possessed, and he didn't ask for a dime. He didn't ask for a promotion. He asked for secrecy because he didn't want the credit. She pauses, tears shining in her eyes under the stage lights. We judge value in this building by salary, by title, by corner offices. But I tell you today, the most valuable person in this company is standing right here because he remembered what we all forgot, that being human is the only job that matters. And then she does something that nobody expects. She puts the microphone down on the podium and walks to the edge of the stage, crouching down in front of Leo, and she holds out her hand. And the room is deadly silent. You could hear a pin drop, and she whispers, but the mic picks it up. Leo, honey, do you want to show them? And the little boy, the boy who hadn't made a sound in 18 months, stands up, walks up the stairs clumsy, small steps, walks right past his mother, and grabs Elias's hand, holding it tight. And he looks at the microphone, looks at the crowd, takes a huge, shuddering breath, and says one word, clear as a bell, friend. The sound of that one word hits the room like a shockwave. People cover their mouths. Some start crying immediately. The board members look down at their shoes in shame. And then, slowly, one person starts clapping. It's the receptionist who Elias always smiled at, then another. Then the whole room is on its feet. A thunderous roar of applause, not for the profit margins, not for the stock price, but for a janitor and a little boy holding hands on stage. And in that moment, Elias looks at Victoria, and she's smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that reaches her eyes. And he knows, he just knows, that he's done hiding, that he's done being invisible. Epilogue. 1 year later, you walk into Sterling Heights, and on the ground floor, where the old supply closet used to be, there's a new glass-walled office, bright, filled with colors, and the sign on the door says the Open Door Foundation, Art Therapy Center. Director, Elias Thorne, and inside, you see kids from the inner city, kids from the suburbs, drawing, laughing, molding clay, and you see Elias, wearing a suit that actually fits him now, sitting on the floor with a messy-haired girl, helping her draw a dragon, and standing in the doorway, watching him with a look of pure adoration, is Victoria, wearing an engagement ring that catches the light, and next to her, chattering away about his new Lego set, is Leo, a boy who found his voice because a janitor took the time to listen. It makes you think, doesn't it? We spend so much time building these towers, these careers, chasing the titles, stepping over people to get to the top, but maybe the most important things aren't at the top at all. Maybe they're right there at the bottom, pushing a cart, waiting for someone to just stop and say hello, waiting for someone to realize that every single person has a magic inside them, if you just give them the pen to draw it out. So, here's my question to you: who are you walking past every day? Who is the invisible person in your life that might hold the key to the very thing you're struggling with? And do you think Victoria was right to risk her entire company for a man the world saw as a nobody? Or is that just a fairy tale that couldn't happen in the real world? Let me know what you think in the comments. I read every single one. And share this story if you believe that kindness is still the most powerful currency we have.